Welcome into Off the Hook Sports. I am your host, Caleb Calhoun. A lot to get to. It is Friday before the Tennessee Georgia game, a huge September matchup, like we talked about yesterday, on the likes and magnitude of Tennessee, Florida in the 1990s. Hit that like and subscribe button, ring the bell, turn your notifications on. We're going to ask if the doubt that Georgia is receiving and all the haters that they've been getting this week after last week's struggle against Austin Peay is hurting Tennessee, is going to cause problems for them on Saturday because it will motivate the Dogs. I'm going to go ahead and give you my reasons. I gave it away yesterday with my picks and bets on why Tennessee will upset Georgia. There are too many advantages in Tennessee's favor. You guys will see that. So we're going to get to that. Also, Georgia's winning streak over Tennessee right now is tied for the fifth longest winning streak over Tennessee in school history. How much more frustrating is it than other losing streaks the Vols have suffered in the past? We're going to get to that. That's kind of an intriguing one. Also, a big one, we're going to discuss Candace Parker as the College GameDay guest picker. And finally, on a more national level, Ohio State wants more money from the Big Ten. Is this going to be a problem for schools of a certain caliber in college football going forward? That will be bank on it because I think there's going to be some issues with that. We will discuss. Hit that like and subscribe button again. Ring the bell. Turn on your notifications. The show brought to you by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Play to win, T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com. We are live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln studio. Ted Russell Ford Lincoln is your home for the finest vehicles in Knoxville, new and used, East Tennessee's largest Ford and Lincoln volume dealer. Let's get rolling with today's tough question. And it's the poll question. I got it up right now. You guys can vote on it. Does the amount of doubt that Georgia is receiving this week hurt the Vols? There has been a lot of speculation that Georgia's in trouble. Aaron Murray, a former Dog, has predicted that the Vols will upset Georgia, interestingly enough. Greg McElroy, who has not really been known to be a fan of Tennessee, has picked the Vols to upset the Dogs. The line in Vegas moved from Georgia -7 on Saturday to Georgia -3.5 on Monday. There's a lot of speculation that this is the year Tennessee upsets Georgia. There's a lot of talk about it. A lot of people are excited about it. College GameDay coming to town. They picked Tennessee, Georgia. They picked it by default because Florida was upset by South Florida. They wanted to do Florida LSU. I can tell you guys that right now. Or they wanted to be able to do Notre Dame and I can't even talk about Notre Dame and Texas A&M, but Notre Dame lost their opener as well. So that's why Tennessee and Georgia get this game somewhat by default, but they are still coming. There is so much excitement that this is the moment Tennessee finally ends this dreaded losing streak to Georgia. Does all of that talk hurt the Vols? And again, that is today's tough question, brought to you by Banks & Jones. And I have the poll question up. Let me give you some of the reasons that on both sides that you could see. In favor of Tennessee on this type of hype, there's an idea that it could actually hurt Georgia because it's giving Tennessee much needed confidence to beat Georgia that they need because of the situations in the offseason and the fact that they haven't been competitive. This Georgia team is young and not as experienced as previous teams, so the negative press could maybe actually get in their heads a little bit more and hurt their confidence. There's also just the talk that much of the football talk might be true. I mean, if Vegas is moving the line, I don't think that's not always a hype thing. That could just be we see what's going on and there's some intel we have and there is a really, really good sign. So all of that's in Georgia's favor or in Tennessee's favor. What's in Georgia's favor is Kirby Smart is very much like Nick Saban, where he tries to pretend that he tries to get his team motivated to believe everybody's against them on a week-to-week basis. And he doesn't even have to do it this time. Nick Saban one time said, I believe it was when Alabama upset Georgia a couple of years ago, when he said, we didn't need, the rat poison infected them this time. Georgia is very much like Alabama in this moment, where they do much better when the bets are against them. At the same time, going back to Tennessee, back in 2022, you had most of the College GameDay crew pick Tennessee to upset Alabama, and Tennessee upset Alabama. So if those programs are the same, this shows that Tennessee can win when the hype is behind them. Then we go back to Georgia. What's the last time Tennessee had this level of hype facing Georgia? 2022. And this is the one I'm bringing up specifically. And we all know what happened in 2022. Tennessee was the number 1 team in the nation. Georgia was number 3 in the inaugural college football playoff rankings. Even though Georgia was defending national champs, was undefeated just like the Vols were. Tennessee was traveling to face Georgia. And also Georgia had been looking ugly in their wins, just like they are this year. And that led to everybody on College GameDay, except for Lee Corso, to pick Tennessee. And Corso picked Georgia, and Georgia ended up winning. Now, with that in mind, the question becomes again, did the hate, and also that was the week Eric Ames said Sanford Stadium is not that loud, and the fans made a different point, and everybody made all those stories out of it. Now, with that in mind, the question was Georgia just extra motivated for that game? And this is where I'm going to give you guys my answer. No. They weren't extra motivated in that game. They were just better than Tennessee, and they were playing at home. And so I think it's different this time around. All the talk and doubt surrounding Georgia is a lot different because there are certain ways that I'm going to get to in which Tennessee matches up better with Georgia than they did in 2022, and Tennessee is playing this game at home. Today's tough question brought to you by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. Play to win. Why settle? Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com.
Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones. banksandjones.com.
All right, the poll question up. Does the amount of doubt Georgia is receiving hurt the Vols? Man, we are 50-50. 50% say yes and 50% say no. I think no, and I think because it's no because, like I said before, that message from Banks & Jones, that Tennessee, the biggest parallel you could draw is 2022. And yes, Georgia blew out Tennessee in 2022. Tennessee had some matchup issues that year that they've somewhat resolved that I'm going to get to later in the program, but also they were on the road that game. It rained that day. They're at home this time. The talent gap's not as significant now as it was back then. So it wasn't about Georgia being motivated. It was about Georgia being better, honestly. And I think that was the real big thing in that game. So I think with that history, I do actually believe that the talk surrounding Georgia this week doesn't hurt the Vols. Also, during that time, the talk surrounding Georgia was a much more veteran team. Remember, they were led by Stetson Bennett. They had a lot of experience, and they knew how to use motivation to their advantage. Now, look, as we know, in college football, it's much easier to deal with success. It's much easier to deal with doubt than deal with success. You can get motivated to deal with doubt. It's harder to motivate yourself to deal with success. Actually, being a veteran team, the veteran leadership dealing with success is what that comes with. However, when you're younger, dealing with both can be a little bit tricky, including doubt, because you doubt yourself. Because if you're younger and people are doubting you, you're doubting yourself at that point. Georgia wasn't doubting themselves in 2022. They were defending national champs, and they were much more experienced. These guys, most of the guys on this team haven't contributed to any national championship that Georgia's won. They may have been on the team, but they didn't contribute. So the doubt could easily be creeping in when people start questioning them this year. And with that in mind, I would argue that no, it doesn't hurt Tennessee. I don't think it helps Georgia as much as it helped Georgia or would have helped Georgia in 2022. But again, the big point is Georgia was just a better team in 2022. So taking all of that into account, I think that, yes, Tennessee is not going to suffer that much from all the doubt that Georgia is receiving this week. And I think that with that in mind, if they lose, they'll lose because Georgia's the better team, pure and simple. or some crazy stuff happens in the game. I don't think they'll lose because Georgia, Michael Jordan level, took this game personally because of all the questions surrounding them and ended up winning. I still question that narrative, by the way, in 2022. Because again, like I say, in 2022, Georgia, the talent gap was so significant, and the game was in Athens. So it was a much bigger deal. It was a top 3 matchup. Georgia was going to get motivated no matter what. It wasn't about the doubt surrounding Georgia in that game per se. It was much, much more about just the makeup of the two programs. Look, there's hype behind programs all the time when they're underdogs. That doesn't always just motivate the better team. Okay. Like I said, in 2022, there was hype behind Tennessee when Alabama came to town. That didn't do enough to motivate Alabama to beat Tennessee. All right. So, I mean, it really depends on the situations you're in and whether or not you're home and away. And Tennessee is at home in this game. As we know, home field advantage is a very, very, very big deal in college football. So when you take that into account, I have to say that, yes, I think that this game and the doubt behind Georgia is not a big deal. And there's an argument, believe it or not, that it could hurt Georgia more than it hurts Tennessee because Georgia is so inexperienced and there's not the same level of production, that there could be questions that are creeping into Georgia and into the players' minds about how good they truly are. And so when you take that into account, you have to consider the fact that Georgia, this could work both ways against them. It could actually work against them that people are doubting them. And we'll see on Saturday. We'll see on Saturday what happens. Now the poll question still is up. Does the amount of doubt Georgia is receiving hurt the Vols? 53% say yes, 47% say no. Very close. You guys keep voting on that. It's a very interesting topic. Portions of the program are brought to you by Chattanooga Mortgage. Congratulations, your home search just got easier. Buying a home in Chattanooga has never been easier. Chat with 2tsmortgage.com. Chat with 2tsmortgage.com. All right. It is time for 4 Downs by Ted, brought to you by Ted Russell Ford Lincoln. As you guys know, we broadcast live every weekday from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln studio. And 4 Downs is coming down to this. And I'm ready to go ahead and go out on a limb and do this. So maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I'm not. Who knows? But I think it's high time I did this. And what I'm talking about is it is high time I go ahead and say my prediction, which is this. Tennessee is going to upset Georgia over the weekend. Yes, you heard it here first. Tennessee is going to upset Georgia over the weekend. I am giving my take on it now. I am going all in. And I am ready to say that Tennessee will upset Georgia over the weekend. Why will they upset Georgia? Well, that is 4 Downs, brought to you by Ted Russell Ford Lincoln, your home for the finest vehicles in Knoxville. New and used, East Tennessee's largest Ford and Lincoln volume dealer. Dave is still out, but because of that, I will do my Cooper Mays impersonation. Again, for those who don't know, I impersonate Cooper Mays when Dave is out, when we do 4 Downs, because Cooper Mays tees us up for each down with the soundboard that Dave has. I don't have the soundboard. So we're going to start with Cooper Mays here. Hit like and subscribe. Well, thank you, Cooper. All right. 4 Downs, 4 reasons Tennessee football will upset Georgia. The upset is coming. I acknowledge up front, I picked Tennessee to upset Georgia in 2022. That was me getting caught in the hype behind Tennessee and the receivers at that time. I didn't realize that Cedric Tillman wasn't going to be fully healthy, and I just didn't take into account that Georgia's better. It rained that day. Tennessee was at Georgia. A lot of things went on that aren't applying here. So why Tennessee will upset Georgia? Let's get rolling. Coop here. First down. Gunnar Stockton. I mean, that's the first one. Gunnar Stockton. Gunnar Stockton is a struggling quarterback in big games. Now, he did help Georgia win the SEC championship against Texas in overtime last year, where he came in place of an injured Carson Beck. But he did not play well that day, okay? And he won the game in overtime. Couple of plays were hit. Georgia had already done what it had needed to do for the most part. He was 12 of 16 for 71 yards, and everybody was excited about that. But guys, do the math real quick. 12 of 16 for 71 yards. That was 4.4 yards per attempt. He threw a bunch of easy passes that they did to try to maximize his efficiency. and he was not great. And then against Notre Dame, he in the college football playoff, Georgia and Gunnar Stockton showed his issues that day. Okay. Because were they really miss Carson Beck? Yes, the stat line for him passing wasn't terrible, 20 of 32 for 234 yards, 1 touchdown. But he was sacked 4 times, and he was sacked because he wasn't getting rid of the ball, and he doesn't do a good job of getting rid of the ball. And that is a notable part of his game. This year, in 2 games, against Marshall, he only completed 58% of his passes for 190 yards and 2 touchdowns. Now, yes, you could say the 2 touchdowns and no interception stands out, and he did run 10 times for 73 yards. Mobility that we hadn't seen from him in the past, but a 58% completion clip against Marshall's not good. The next week, yes, he completed 76.5% of his passes, but he only averaged 6.7 yards per attempt last week, which is to say he threw a lot of easy passes. And when you throw those easy passes, you should actually be completing more than 76.5% of your passes. And that's the problem. They're playing very conservative with him. Gunnar Stockton is not ready for this moment. And the biggest reason he's not ready for this moment actually is going to lead us to second down. So let me tee him up now. Cooper Mays here. Second down. This game's at Neyland Stadium. This is Gunnar Stockton's first road game ever as a starting quarterback. Not in the SEC, not at a premier SEC stadium, ever. It's his first road game ever as a starting quarterback. And you are sending him to one of the 3 toughest places to play in the SEC. One of the 4. If I'm doing a Mount Rushmore of the 4 toughest places to play in the SEC, we're going Tennessee, Florida, LSU, and Texas A&M. Auburn and South Carolina are somewhat in that tier 1, 2. South Carolina gets oddly loud. Those 6 really stand out over anything. And I might throw Alabama in now because Alabama filled in the stadium on either side. But either way, he hasn't played in any of those environments. He hasn't even played at Vanderbilt yet, okay? He has played Texas on a neutral field, Notre Dame on a neutral field. By the way, the Texas game was in Atlanta. So, I mean, again, not really on a neutral field if you really think about it. There were a lot more there were a lot more Georgia fans at that game, if I'm not mistaken, than Texas fans in the SEC title or in the SEC championship game last year. Now, when they played Notre Dame in New Orleans, more neutral site, but still, this is Gunnar Stockton's first road game, and it's at Neyland Stadium, a brutal place. I get Georgia's blown out Tennessee twice at Neyland Stadium, 2021 and 2023. They had a veteran in Stetson Bennett, and Carson Beck had already had a good bit of experience playing the whole season in 2023 during the Heupel era. I get Georgia's the one team to beat Heupel in Knoxville since November of 2021. And they've done it twice. Nobody else has beaten Tennessee in Knoxville since November of 2021. But playing at Neyland Stadium, this is Gunnar Stockton's first road game. It's the first true road game for a lot of the new starters. I think that is a huge reason that Tennessee will upset Georgia, and that is a big, big, big deal. Again, you can't discount the road environment. Tennessee Senator Cooper Mays here. Third down. Okay. Here's a weird one, but the game is not at night. Now, the game wasn't at night in 2023 or 2022 either. Tennessee wasn't good enough to win in 2023. They were on the road in 2022. The game is not at night. Josh Heupel pretty much has been perfect since last year, since the start of last year against the spread in games that don't start at night. He's perfect against the spread in games that don't start at night. He's horrible in night games. Now, there's a big reason for that. For those who don't know, Tennessee practices early in the morning. They practice early in the morning, and so night games cause them trouble. Last year, in night games, they started 2-0 against the spread, and they started 3-0. They won the first 3 night games against the spread. NC State, Kent State, Oklahoma. NC State might have been throwing games. I'm not NC State, excuse me, Kent State. Kent State might have been throwing games. Then they lost every other game against the spread in night games the rest of the way last year. So a night game is a problem for Heupel, and this game not being at night is a huge benefit. And I think that alone gives Tennessee a huge advantage. However, there's one gigantic X's and O's advantage that Tennessee has that they haven't had in years, ever under Josh Heupel when they face Georgia. That is fourth down. Fourth down is brought to you by Ted Russell Ford and Lincoln, your home for the finest vehicles in Knoxville, new and used, East Tennessee's largest Ford and Lincoln volume dealer.
a beacon of hope in a world of high prices. Look to the skies, Knoxville. Super Savings is here. Ted Russell Ford is East Tennessee's #1 Volume Ford dealer.
Right now, get 0% APR, 0 down, and 0 payments for 90 days on select models, plus 2 years complimentary maintenance.
Come see the super dealer today at either Ted Russell Ford location, Parkside Drive, or Kingston Pike.
All SEC Center, Cooper Mays here. 4th down. Well, thank you, Coop. Man, gosh. Guys, I'm getting really good at that. All right, 4th down. Tennessee finally has a speedy wide receiver who can stretch the field in Mike Matthews. Why is this a big deal? When Josh Heupel's offense is humming at its peak, you have a quarterback who gets rid of the ball quickly. And you also have receivers that can, with the wide splits, well, you have to have a quarterback that can get rid of the ball quickly and process as well. You have to have interior blocking that's solid, so they have to respect the run. But you also have to have, and this is highly underrated, you have to have receivers fast enough that cornerbacks can't cover them one-on-one. The way the wide splits for Josh Heupel works is this. You have the receiver spread out sideline to sideline. And basically, that requires the safeties and the linebackers to either commit to playing in coverage or commit to blitzing. And the quarterback can see pretty easily when he gets up to the line of scrimmage which one they're going to do. That's why they say all the time the Heupel offense is just read a safety. The safety can't play in a cover one drop back zone and then, just go to either side because the wide splits are so far. They have to commit to a side, which is why I've talked to you guys about how the Heupel offense really only coaches you to look at one side of the field. Now, I was contradicted on this yesterday because the Heupel offense, you do look good quarterbacks like Aguilar who are quick, I'll say quarterbacks who process as well as Aguilar who are quick. They can scan the whole field very quickly, which is an added advantage to this offense, by the way. But to really, truly run it, you really do only have to look at one side of the field. The side you're choosing to look at is whichever sides the safeties are not committing to, and you either determine if the safeties are cheating up, you hand it off. If they're cheating up, you throw it. If they're playing back, you hand it off. And they can't disguise blitzes because the receivers are so far apart on the wide splits. Now, theoretically, you have a possession receiver, a go-to receiver who dictates coverage, and a slot receiver who's very fast. The problem in the past for Tennessee against Georgia has been that the receiver who dictates coverage, well, neither the wideouts, not the slot receiver, but neither the wideouts have been that speedy. Even Brew McCoy before his broken leg was an elite receiver. Loved the way he played. Same with Cedric Tillman, both NFL guys. They didn't have barn-burning speed. What does that mean? Georgia's cornerbacks, who were NFL caliber, were able to hang with them one-on-one, which allowed Kirby Smart to get a lot more creative defensively with Tennessee's offense than other teams otherwise could. Well, this year, Tennessee finally has a speedy wideout that they can't just hang with one-on-one on the outside. That speedy wideout is Mike Matthews. I think the existence of Mike Matthews completely changes the complexion of Tennessee's offense being able to do what it needs to do against Georgia. So then the big question on this upset doesn't come down to the outside because Tennessee can throw the ball to Mike Matthews now. I think that's a huge advantage. The big question is this, and we don't know the answer, and that's why I didn't have it as one of my downs. But the real question is the interior offensive line as good as it has looked the first 2 games? We don't know that. We won't know that until Georgia. If the interior offensive line is still solid, then Tennessee will be in great shape. Why is that a big deal? And the offensive line does have major issues, and we don't know if it has major issues yet. Because, again, guys, pump the brakes with Syracuse and ETSU. We don't know if it does have major issues. Georgia can run a 3-3-5 shell and cover everything and just get pressure up front with its elite defensive line led by Christian Miller. However, if the interior offensive line is just as good as it was in 2022, not the exterior, I don't really care about the tackles, actually. The interior, if they're just as good as they were in 2022 or 2023 with Cooper Mays, Javonte Spraggins, and Andre Carrick, really 2022 and 2024, then Tennessee's going to win this game. And since that's a 50-50 chance, and I gave you guys all the other reasons, I'm leaning on what they've done the last 2 games, and they have not looked like they've had problems yet. So, yeah, with all that in mind, that's why Tennessee is going to upset Georgia, and that's where I am landing. I think the offense is going to do what it needs to do with Mike Matthews and the interior offensive line. Portions of the program are brought to you by Hemp House, the premier hemp dispensary online with a wide variety, great selection of strict standards. HempHouseChat.com, HempHouseChat.com. Use the promo code HOOKED for 10% off. When we come back, how frustrating has Tennessee's losing streak to Georgia been over the last 8 years? We're going to discuss. Stick with us. 2 minutes off the hook sports.
Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com.
Hello, ma'am. I'm here to look at that plumbing problem.
Oh boy. Yep. You're gonna need a whole new sink.
If this toilet is no good,
You're gonna need a new one ASAP.
you are not gonna believe this. You're all out of milk. Have you heard about our service plan?
I need to call Scott's.
Scott's Plumbing, your trusted neighborhood plumber since 1977.
Community banking is about location and much more. It's about family. We reside in your community. We are a part of your community. At Commercial Bank, our commitment extends beyond the walls of our branches. It's displayed each day in the opportunities we provide, the money we give back, and the time we commit, all to help improve the lives of the people, families, and businesses that make our communities great. Commercial Bank, life made better.
Having been in the jewelry industry for a long time in the Knoxville community, I saw a need for a jeweler, a real jeweler.
Our ability to do these designs has really been based on the customers bringing new things in and challenging us as a store. Our goal is not to tell anybody what they want. Our goal is to listen to what they want and then help them get there.
Schedule your consultation today to get your special someone the perfect custom gift just in time for the holidays.
Welcome back to Off the Hook Sports. Hit that like and subscribe button, ring that bell, turn on your notifications. I want to give a great comment point by Derek. For people that are asking why the wide splits matters, Derek, you're right. Wide splits allows you to keep the defensive backs from being involved in the running game. Exactly. When you run the wide splits, they can't disguise their coverage. So if they are involved in the running game, they're going to get burned every time when it happens. So yeah, that's pretty much where we're going to see how this all plays out. Okay, so let's go ahead and discuss this day in Tennessee football history. On this day, 33 years ago, Tennessee upset Georgia under interim head coach Philip Fulmer. They upset Georgia 34-31. It was Heath Shuler's just his second start. They converted a 4th and 13 late, led them down to beat Georgia on the road 34-31 in a shocking upset that made Philip Fulmer a national name. Got them to 2-0. The next week, they upset Florida to get to 3-0 before Johnny Majors had returned. But the 3-0 start is what got Philip Fulmer the Tennessee head coaching job. But it's this day, 33 years ago, that Tennessee upset Georgia 34-31. This day in Tennessee sports history, brought to you by Sports Treasures. Carrying over 5 million sports treasures and so much more. Follow on Facebook for the best sports memorabilia, daily updates, facebook.com/sports treasures TN, facebook.com/sports treasures TN.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
All right. What is the most frustrating Tennessee football losing streak ever? Tennessee's 8-game losing streak to Georgia, 2017 through present, is one of the longest losing streaks in school history. It's tied for the 5th longest losing streak in school history. What competes with it? That is going to be Hot or Cold, brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning, 50 years in East Tennessee, integrity matters, cityheatandair.com. Hot or Cold, what is Tennessee's most frustrating losing streak in a series of all time? We're going to go down the list of the longest ones, and we're going to play Hot or Cold to determine which ones are more frustrating than their losing streak to Georgia. And I bring this up to say Tennessee right now has an 8-game losing streak to Georgia. They've lost to Georgia every year since 2017. And I'm going to try to bring up the context of the time because some of these are going to be very historical in nature, okay? And because they'll be historical in nature, we're going to break down how frustrating we should view them. So Hot or Cold, brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning, 50 years in East Tennessee, integrity matters, cityheatandair.com. Let's get rolling. Longest losing streaks in Tennessee history. Am I hot or cold on them being more frustrated than Tennessee's losing streak to Georgia? Alabama, 2007 to 2021. Tennessee had a 15-year losing streak to Alabama from 2007 to 2021, the longest losing streak in school history to the Tide. Is that one more frustrating than their losing streak to Georgia right now? I'm cold on that. No, it is not more frustrating than their losing streak to Georgia right now. And let me break down why. It's not more frustrating than their losing streak to Georgia because just like this Georgia streak, by the way, is one of them is frustrating. But one thing that stands out, the reason you can accept it is Georgia has been the better program since that time. Kirby Smart's been running the better program. Alabama was the same case. Yes, Tennessee was better in 2007 specifically. But every year after that, from 2008 to 2021, Alabama was the better football team. That was the Nick Saban dynasty. So, I mean, there's no way you can look at Alabama from 2008 to 2021, and you can't go to any year and say, well, Tennessee should have beaten Alabama because they were the better team. No, I get Tennessee had some frustrating losses in that time. The Mount Cody heartbreak in 2009 was one. The 2015 loss late was one. But overall, that losing streak made sense. So I think you live with that. Again, Alabama, 1971 to 1981. Again, not frustrating. That was Bear Bryant's Renaissance period. Bear Bryant in 1971 came out with the wishbone when nobody saw it coming. Nobody had prepared for it. They thought Bear Bryant was done. His tenure had ended. It was over. And basically, for those who don't know the story, in 1968, 1969, and 1970, Bear Bryant had gone 8-3, 6-5, 6-5, and 6-5-1. He had seemed like he had lost his step from the mid-60s, early 60s national title program he had built at Alabama. People thought he might be done during that time. People thought it was over, that he had really lost his luster. And Bear Bryant came out in 1971 and shocked the world with the wishbone offense that he had learned from Darrell Royal. And Darrell Royal at Texas was the one who had really helped him install it. And with Darrell Royal, he installed the wishbone, came out 1971, shocked everybody, went 11-1, won the SEC championship. That sparked an 11-year run where he was dominant again, and Tennessee actually began a downward slide during the Bill Battle years. Not frustrating. Cold on it, not more frustrating than Tennessee's losing streak to Georgia as of right now. Florida, 11-game losing streak, 2005 to 2015. Absolutely, this was more frustrating. Absolutely. This is, to me, the most frustrating losing streak for Tennessee football in history. Now, the first half of that losing streak, you can live with. Urban Meyer 2005 to 2010, the run he had at Florida with 2 national titles in 3 years as Tennessee was falling off a cliff. They went 5-6, 9-4, 10-4, 5-7, whatever. They became a really bad program under Philip Fulmer and then Lane Kiffin and Derek Dooley. Fine. You can live under Philip Fulmer and Lane. Yeah, and Derek Dooley. You can live with that. It was the end of Phil Fulmer's career, the Lane Kiffin 1-year experiment, and then the start of the Derek Dooley tenure, all through the heyday of Urban Meyer's run. You can live with that 6-game losing streak. That 5-game losing streak afterwards, though, from 2011 to 2015, that was added to it, was absolutely frustrating for every Vol fan involved. Okay, every single one. And the biggest reason it was so frustrating is because that losing streak, specifically, Tennessee should have won 4 of those games. Tennessee absolutely should have won in 2014 to 2015, the last 2 years of the losing streak. I think they could have won in 2011, 2012, and 2013. Had they not started Nathan Peterman in 2013, had they stuck with Justin Worley and Nathan Peterman not had the worst first half ever, they might beat Florida in the Swamp in 2013. So they might have won all 3 of those years. They might have won every year from 2013 to 2016. There was also the blown 17-7 lead they had in 2006. But those Florida losses, the last 2, a 9-0 lead going into the fourth quarter. Florida switches quarterbacks, wins 10-9 off a couple of Tennessee turnovers from Justin Worley. The next year, Tennessee up 27-14. Butch Jones doesn't go for 2 late, which was a massive fail. Burns a timeout because he doesn't have his field goal block team on when Florida was trying a 50-yarder just to go from being down 13 to being down 10. Just an abysmal display of horrible coaching. That, to me, is the most frustrating losing streak in Tennessee football history. The 2005 to 2015 loss to Florida. Hawkhead is right. Every loss to Florida with Butch was solely because he lost his mind. Absolutely. Butch Jones, his stupid coaching is why Tennessee could have won 5 straight over Florida from 2013 to 2017. That was horrendous coaching. All right, moving on. Let's go to old school. Here's the 4th largest losing streak in Tennessee football history. Who knows this one? Vanderbilt. Tennessee had a 12-game unbeaten streak against Vanderbilt in their first 12 matchups from 1892 to 1913. From 1892 to 1913, Tennessee failed to beat Vanderbilt 12 straight times. Vanderbilt in that time had a 9-game winning streak because there was a tie in 1914. Yes, this one would have been more frustrating than Tennessee's series against Georgia. And the reason would be there were a couple of times where Tennessee did field the better team, most notably the 1913 team. The 1913 team, for those who don't know, that year when they went 6-3. Now Vanderbilt did go 5-3. Tennessee, though, lost to Vanderbilt 7-6 that year. They should have won that game per all sources and all reports that covered the teams during those times. Vanderbilt was the class of the South during the 19-teens. There's no doubt about it. But that doesn't mean that Tennessee should not have beaten Vanderbilt at least some of those times. They actually did field a better team a few of those times, and they still managed to lose to Vanderbilt. One of the other notable ones was 1908. They went 7-2. Vanderbilt was 7-2-1. Tennessee lost to Vanderbilt in Alabama, typical Tennessee fashion. You would never, typical them to lose to Vanderbilt or in Alabama during that time period. Now, Tennessee was very bad in the early 1900s, but there were just years where they had the better team and still lost. And for those who don't know on how cursed Tennessee was against Vanderbilt, it's very much like the Tennessee-Florida series now, because the Tennessee's first win ever over Vanderbilt was in 1914. That team went 9-0, won the SIAA title under Zora Clevenger. It's the first memorable Tennessee football team. They won their first game against Carson Newman 89-0 that year, but they beat Vanderbilt 16-14. Now, Tennessee's 9-0. Vanderbilt, for those who don't know that year, is a highly mediocre 2-6. Yet somehow Tennessee barely beats them 16-14. That's just how cursed they were against Vanderbilt at that time. So yeah, more frustrating than Georgia. I'm hot on that. All right, here's an interesting one that you guys may not remember. Ole Miss. Tennessee and Ole Miss once had a rivalry, and Tennessee had an 8-game losing streak to Ole Miss from 1959 to 1966. That's right, from 1959 to 1966, Tennessee had an 8-game losing streak. Here is why that one's not as frustrating if you are a Tennessee fan. There was the 65 loss to Ole Miss would be. Ole Miss was 7-4. That was Tennessee's renaissance year in Doug Dickey's second year, and Tennessee finished year 8-1-2 and in the top 10. However, that was the peak period of Johnny Vaught, Ole Miss head coach Johnny Vaught, who won the national title in 1959, 1960, and 1962, along with winning the SEC title in 1963, finished in the top 5 in 1961, in the top 20 in 1964, and was in the top 20 in 1965 and 1966. Tennessee, meanwhile, under Bowden Wyatt, was falling behind as a program because the single wing formation was finally dying out, particularly without Robert Neal in there. And despite an early good start with Bowden Wyatt winning the 56 SEC title, starting in 58 and 59, the single wing had just completely fallen out of fashion, and Tennessee was dying with the ship. It would be like sticking with the wishbone today after it's been figured out. So 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, Tennessee was just an irrelevant program. 63, they hired Jim McDonald for a year, were mediocre. And then 64, they hired Doug Dickey, but that was his first year. He had to rebuild the program. So 65, 66, you still understand losing to Ole Miss. With that in mind, I actually think the 1959 to 1966 losing streak to Ole Miss would not be as frustrating as Tennessee's losing streak to Georgia is right now, because similar to Georgia, you can understand why Tennessee lost all of those games. Okay, still going. I got a couple of others, and someone brings up Tennessee Sewanee, that Sewanee was in the SEC at one time. That is very true. Sewanee was in the SEC at one time, believe it or not. And Tennessee lost its first 4 games to Sewanee, and also had a 6-game losing streak to Sewanee from 1903 to 1913. But I can't call that one more frustrating than the Georgia one, because honestly, again, during that time, Sewanee was the better program. But there are some other ones that are worse, and we're going to get to those. A couple Alabama ones, hot or cold, brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning. 50 years in East Tennessee. Integrity matters. cityheatandair.com.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard Heating and Air Conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air. Dare to compare.
Other frustrating Tennessee losing streaks beyond Alabama. They've got a 15-game losing streak and an 11-game losing streak to Alabama. Now we're going to discuss a couple of other really frustrating losing streaks they had to Alabama, because Alabama seemed to curse Tennessee worse than even Florida did at one point in the history of the programs. One of those times was a 7-game losing streak Tennessee suffered against Alabama from 1905 to 1913. Believe it or not, that was not a losing streak that was reflective of that losing streak was reflective of the programs during that time. Tennessee had a lot of bad teams during that period, and so that losing streak to Alabama was understandable. Alabama was the better program, similar to now, not more frustrating than Georgia, so I'm cold on that. However, Alabama 1986 to 1992. Okay. Here we go. Absolutely, that one's more frustrating than their current losing streak to Georgia. 86 to 92, Tennessee, Alabama. Tennessee had the better team most of those years and managed to lose. I'm just going to point out Tennessee had the better team in 1990, 1989, 1987, and they lost all 3 times. They should have won all. They were the better team all 3 of those games. And actually, funny enough, in 1987 and 1989, Tennessee wasn't even close with Alabama in those games. That's what was so crazy about it. Tennessee went 10-2-1 in 1987. Alabama went 7-5, yet Alabama beat Tennessee 41-22. The year before, Alabama beat Tennessee 56-28. Tennessee, that ended a 4-game losing streak they had to Tennessee. Tennessee was kind of rebuilding after losing a lot of players from that 85 team. 1988, Alabama was number 20. Tennessee started 0-6. I understand losing that year. 1989, though, Tennessee was the better team than Alabama. They lost 47-30. That one was crazy. 1990 was the flukish game of all time. Tennessee was the better team. They were number 3. Alabama was unranked at the time. Not only were they unranked, they were 2-3 going into Knoxville. Tennessee, in a 6-6 game, travels down to kick a game-winning field goal. Alabama blocks it, runs it all the way back to the other way to kick a game-winning field goal on their own. Flukish loss ever in the series. This losing streak, I think, was the most insanely frustrating of all of them with Alabama. So I'm hot on that one. That one was really frustrating. A couple other ones, they had a couple 5-game losing streaks to Florida. I think the 2017 through 2021 one was a brutal one because Tennessee, again, should have beaten them in 2017. But 2018 through 2021, Florida was better all 4 years. The 5-game losing streak to Florida in the 90s, somewhat frustrating, but that was just Spurrier out-coaching Philip Fulmer and being light years ahead of him. So with all that in mind, the Georgia losing streak has been frustrating for Tennessee fans. I think Alabama 85-92, Vanderbilt 86-92, Alabama 86-92, Vanderbilt 1892-1913, and Florida 2005-2015 are the more frustrating unbeaten streaks, winless streaks Tennessee's had against programs, because those were all Tennessee had better teams during those years against those programs and still managed to lose. Portions of the program are brought to you by Haun Dawgs of Knoxville, champions look good in orange, hgknoxville.com, hgknoxville.com. Also, Peak IV Hydration in South Knoxville and Sevierville. Live your life to the fullest. Hydrate, rejuvenate, and elevate your health with Peak IV Hydration, peakivhydration.com. When we come back, we are going to discuss Candace Parker being the guest picker for Tennessee, Georgia College Game Day. Stick with us. 2 minutes off the hook sports.
It's a new year, a new day, and Ted Russell Lincoln has an exciting new offer to share. Right now, get a 2024 Lincoln Navigator with 0% APR for 72 months and up to $4,000 in bonus cash. Or drive away in a new 2024 Lincoln Corsair Grand Touring with 0% APR for 60 months and up to $4,500 in bonus cash. It's time to get excited about the ride. Come and see what a luxury car experience truly is at Ted Russell Lincoln Knoxville.
Hello, ma'am. I'm here to look at that plumbing problem. Oh boy. Yep. You're gonna need a whole new sink. If this toilet is no good, you're gonna need a new one ASAP. You are not gonna believe this. You're all out of milk.
Have you heard about our service plan?
I need to call Scott's.
Scott's Plumbing, your trusted neighborhood plumber since 1977.
Having been in the jewelry industry for a long time in the Knoxville community, I saw a need for a jeweler, a real jeweler.
Our ability to do these designs has really been based on the customers bringing new things in and challenging us as a store. Our goal is not to tell anybody what they want. Our goal is to listen to what they want and then help them get there.
Schedule your consultation today to get your special someone the perfect custom gift just in time for the holidays.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Welcome back to Off the Hook Sports. Hit that like and subscribe button, ring the bell, turn on your notifications, tell a friend. Portions of the program are brought to you by Quality Tire Pros, serving Chattanooga community since 1957. All major brands of tires, full service automotive brake alignments, oil changes, and more. QualityTirePros.com. Welcome to say hello. Off the Hook Sports sent you. QualityTirePros.com. It is time for What the H. Brought to you by Rick Terry Jewelry Designs. They want to be your jeweler looking for affordable game day jewelry, a Tennessee tradition. RickTerryJewelry.com. Candace Parker is going to be the guest picker for Tennessee on College Game Day Saturday. Candace Parker has released a message for Tennessee, getting ready to call and pick the game on Saturday. I'm going to play her message now. She's pumped to go to the game. Here she is. Here's what she had to say.
What's up? It's your girl, Candace Parker, proud alum of the University of Tennessee. If you cut me, I bleed orange. And that's why I'm so excited that College Game Day is coming to Knoxville as the University of Tennessee Volunteers take on the Georgia Dawgs. And guess what? You're looking at your College Game Day celebrity guest picker. I'm so excited to let the world in on a little secret that 100,000 screaming fans in Neyland will know on Saturday that the Tennessee Volunteers are going to shock the world and end the 10-year drought. Joshua Dobbs, 2016, threw that Hail Mary, and there's a new Josh that's going to take down the Dawgs, and that's Coach Heupel. High-octane offense, solid defense. We're ready, and I'm calling it right now. So I look forward to seeing you all on Saturday.
Little anticlimactic. Candace Parker picked Tennessee to upset Georgia already, but everybody knew she was going to pick Tennessee to upset Georgia. Candace Parker, what do we think of Candace Parker hosting or being the guest picker on College Game Day? What do you think of Candace Parker being the guest picker on College Game Day? We'll say love it, say fine, but wish it was a football player, or hate it. You guys go ahead and vote on that. Love it, fine, but wish it was a football player, or hate it. Now, I know many people would say they prefer Peyton Manning. I agree with Peyton Manning's already done it. He did it for Alabama back in 2022. As we know, Peyton Manning, one of the beloved parts about Tennessee is that he ended that losing streak to Alabama. Candace Parker helped end a drought too, for those who don't remember. Before Candace Parker, Pat Summitt had been on a bit of a national title drought. The Lady Vols hadn't won a national title from 1999 through 2006. That was her longest drought since she won her first one in 89. Candace Parker then comes in, wins 2 national titles before going to the WNBA. Now, Candace Parker, I think, and I've said this for a while, is the greatest player in Lady Vols history. No disrespect to Shamika Holtzclaw. I love Shamika Holtzclaw. I think she does a lot of great things, and I'm very proud of her for opening up about her depression and things like that. But Candace Parker literally rejuvenated a program that had really gotten a little stale as the women's game was becoming more guard-oriented and up-tempo, and Pat Summitt was sticking with her defense and rebounding philosophy, kind of like how Neyland stuck with the single wing in the 1950s. Neyland was able to get 2 national titles out of it because he got the right players, Doug Atkins and Hank Laricella. Pat Summitt was able to get 2 more national titles out of what she was doing because she got Candace Parker. Whereas in the 90s, Pat Summitt was just overwhelming everybody with talent the way Gina Auriemma was in the 2010s. So me personally, I actually love it. I love it. I think it's great. I think she's actually great for the university, but I understand if you say fine, but wish it was a football player. That also makes sense too. One of the things that helps with Candace Parker, and you got to think about this with younger audiences. Candace Parker connects well with a lot of younger kids, and particularly recruits, because she does a lot of NBA coverage. She does college basketball coverage. She did it with Inside the NBA on TNT for a while. Doing it with those players, doing it with them, doing it with Charles Barkley, Shaq, and Kenny, hanging out with them, has really ingratiated herself with a certain audience, many of whom could be prospective recruits. So to see her on College Game Day and to remind people that she went to Tennessee could be a selling point. I know that sounds a little weird, but just bear with me on that. It could actually be a real selling point for the Vols that somebody as cool as Candace Parker is on there. Like, yes, Peyton Manning is the overarching face of Tennessee, and it does stand out, and everybody's proud that he went to Tennessee, and seeing him represent Tennessee is a big deal. He represents Tennessee, I feel like, harder than Tom Brady represents Michigan. I think part of that is Tom Brady was mistreated at Michigan because Lloyd Carr, for those who don't know, wouldn't even start Tom Brady full-time his senior year because he was alternating between Tom Brady and Drew Henson. But Peyton Manning, as much as you love him, I mean, the dude is a little square, isn't he? A little bit square. He was square for his own age. Okay, Peyton Manning is a Gen Xer stuck in a silent generation Southerner's body. All right? So with that in mind, I think that Peyton Manning is, as cool as he is, dude's kind of square. Now, if you had, it's funny, if you got Al Wilson on there, Al Wilson can be quiet, but then he can be loud. If you got the loud Al Wilson, if you got the hype Al Wilson on there, that would be a selling point for recruits, and I would love to see that. I want to see Al Wilson just go crazy, but Al Wilson's kind of an odd dude, and unfortunately for Al Wilson, I wish he had more of a profile as he did on the national stage. He's one of the most underrated players to play for Tennessee. Two things worked against Al Wilson in the NFL. He was playing in the AFC as a linebacker during Ray Lewis's prime. So he was always going to play second fiddle to Ray Lewis. But also, Al Wilson had his career cut short by a horrible neck injury in 2006. If Al Wilson had played in the 90s or had played starting in 2010 and didn't have the neck injury, Al Wilson would be in the Hall of Fame. He was a heck of a linebacker. I've said this before. If I could draft right now, if I'm drafting former Tennessee football players, where should they all go for the NFL specifically? For the NFL, I've argued that Al Wilson should go third. Peyton Manning should go number 1. Reggie White should go number 2. Those were just generational, insane talents. But Al Wilson should go third. Coming out, he was that good. Al Wilson would have been epic as a guest picker. Okay, so, but again, he just doesn't have the name cachet. He just brings the hype. John Henderson, same thing. He's going to be honored for the Tennessee-Georgia game on Saturday. I kind of wish they could have gotten John Henderson to be the guest picker. That dude brings some real hype. He's more beloved in Tennessee, though, even though he was a Pro Bowl defensive tackle, than Albert Hainsworth, who was his teammate, was more beloved in the NFL. You bring on Albert Hainsworth. A lot of people know him. The stories with Albert Hainsworth are kind of hilarious on that. But yeah, you could bring on Albert Hainsworth, man. That would be good. Eric Berry, another great one. Eric Berry's a great face for the university. I think he's very beloved for a lot of other reasons. But I think having Candace Parker out there does stand out as a very good pick. What's the H brought to you by Rick Terry Jewelry Designs. They want to be your jeweler looking for affordable game day jewelry, a Tennessee tradition. RickTerryJewelry.com.
Having been in the jewelry industry for a long time in the Knoxville community, I saw a need for a jeweler, a real jeweler.
Our ability to do these designs has really been based on the customers bringing new things in and challenging us as a store. Our goal is not to tell anybody what they want. Our goal is to listen to what they want and then help them get there.
Schedule your consultation today to get your special someone the perfect custom gift just in time for the holidays.
The poll question up. We're going to go ahead and look at that now. What do you think of Candace Parker being the guest picker on College Game Day? Love it. Fine, but wish it was a football player. Hate it. 58% say fine, but wish it was a football player. 37% say love it. And 5% say hate it. A couple other people, I want to go to the message board, who some people are wishing was on there. Someone said, should have gotten Tony Vitello. That is true. Nobody can hype a crowd like Tony Vitello. That is a very good point. And he's a hot commodity right now in the sport. Getting Tony Vitello would have been epic if they could do it. Cajun Vol, I'm not going to share your post, but it involves Smokey and Uga going at it. They should try to get them in there together. That would actually be really funny. And so we'll see how that one goes. That would actually be hilarious if they got them together. So I think it's actually a Nathaniel Kim says should have had Feinbaum on. Yeah, but doesn't he have that own SEC Now show that they do on Saturdays in college football? I think they do. So I don't think he can do College Game Day because of him dealing with that. Pseudosham says Lady Vols have several basketball recruits this weekend. They do, and a lot of men's basketball recruits are in town too. So again, Candace Parker, this is a recruiting move for Tennessee. I'm going to tell you that right now. I think there was an argument that Tennessee did this as part of a recruiting move. Candace Parker does a lot to ingratiate herself with the fans. She does a lot of things that I think are very popular on that front. And because of that, I think Tennessee turned to Candace Parker because they know that she can ingratiate with certain audiences. And Josh Heupel likes that. Rick Barnes likes that. And Kim Caldwell likes that. So this could be a huge recruiting move. And I know you guys may think I'm reading into this to a certain degree, but I genuinely think that it is a big deal, the recruiting, having Candace Park there. So I think having Candace Parker there is a big, big, big deal. And I think it helps a lot for Tennessee on the recruiting trail. Again, my personal choice would have been Al Wilson. Just given how things have gone, Al Wilson, it's just too much fun to watch when he's in his hype mode. But there's a lot of positives to Candace Parker being on that stage for Tennessee on the recruiting trail. Portions of the program are brought to you by the UPS store Hardin Valley, helping individuals and small businesses, wide range of products and services, locally owned and operated. 10629 Hardin Valley Road. When we come back, Ohio State wants more money from the Big Ten. What type of impact will this have long term? Bank on it. We're going to talk about it. Stick with us. 2 minutes off the Hook Sports.
A beacon of hope in a world of high prices. Look to the skies, Knoxville. Super savings is here. Ted Russell Ford is East Tennessee's #1 Volume 4 dealer.
Right now, get 0% APR, 0 down, and 0 payments for 90 days on select models, plus 2 years complimentary maintenance.
Come see the super dealer today at either Ted Russell Ford location, Parkside Drive, or Kingston Pike.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Community banking is about location and much more. It's about family. We reside in your community. We are a part of your community. At Commercial Bank, our commitment extends beyond the walls of our branches. It's displayed each day in the opportunities we provide, the money we give back, and the time we commit, all to help improve the lives of the people, families, and businesses that make our communities great. Commercial Bank, life made better.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Newbert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Newbert Collision Center.
Are you ready to get strong? At NFC, we offer top-notch weight training and functional fitness, so you can build strength and improve your performance. Join today at NFC1.com or stop by any one of our 7 East Tennessee locations.
Welcome back to Off the Hook Sports. Hit that like and subscribe button. Ring the bell, turn on your notifications. It is time for the stat of the day, and the stat of the day is this. Josh Heupel, no Tennessee football coach has lost 5 straight to Georgia. Tennessee has lost 8 straight to Georgia overall, but no coach has lost 5 straight. Josh Heupel tied Philip Fulmer right now for the longest losing streaks to Georgia for a coach, which is 4 straight. Fulmer lost to Georgia from 2000 to 2003. Josh Heupel from 2021 to 2024. He's hoping to end that on Saturday. Stat of the day is brought to you by Joe Newbert Collision Center. For nearly 50 years, Newbert Collision Center has been East Tennessee's best choice for quality repair work and fantastic customer service. JoeNewbertCollision.com, JoeNewbertCollision.com. All right. It is time for Bank on It. And here we go. Ohio State reportedly wants more money from the Big Ten. That's right. Ohio State wants more money from the Big Ten. That is coming out. It came out yesterday. The Ohio State Buckeyes are basically complaining about how much revenue they generate for the Big Ten compared to what other schools generate in the Big Ten. This is a big deal. This is going to stand out more. Ohio State program valuations, if we're just doing football revenue alone, laps most of the rest of the Big Ten. Now, Ohio State as an overall projected value, according to The Athletic, is worth roughly $1.9 billion. This follows the Big 12 doing a certain revenue model, the Mountain West doing a revenue distribution model where it's uneven, and most notably the ACC to stay afloat when Florida State was suing them. Florida State and Clemson reached an agreement where there would be more revenue going to schools that produce better ratings in the season for games. That's how they can stay competitive with SEC programs for now. Ohio State is trying to go above that. Here's the thing. Ohio State's in the best situation possible already. In terms of conference TV revenue payout, save Notre Dame, who is independent, Ohio State's in the conference that generates the most revenue and pays the most out per school. And they are on the upper tier of that because two of the schools in the Big Ten, Oregon and Washington, are playing and taking half the revenue. So Ohio State is playing hardball to go even beyond that. Now, is this a thing long-term for college football? Are the upper schools and conferences going to start demanding more money and band together to form their own conference? Well, this is just the start. But let me say this to you guys. And this is not about Greg Sankey, because I've told you guys for a while, I don't think he does a good job as commissioner. However, bank on it. Brought to you by Commercial Bank, members FDIC, Life Made Better. Bank on it. There are going to be schools in all major conferences now, up to the Big Ten, which is supposed to be unaffected, demanding more money from their conferences. It is going to cause chaos across the college football world. While that is happening, the SEC will be fine, and it won't affect the SEC. That's Bank on It, brought to you by Commercial Bank, member FDIC.
Commercial Bank is your neighborhood bank. What makes us different from other banks? We understand that every customer has unique opportunities, challenges, and financial concerns. We don't expect you to fit into the same box as the next person or business. Whether it's purchasing a home, saving for your child's future, or planning for your next vacation, we're with you every step of the way to navigate life's big decisions. Commercial Bank. Life made better.
Here is why every school, every conference but the SEC is going to have this problem. Every conference but the SEC gets carried by 2 to 3 programs, is much more top heavy. This is the argument we've always made for why the SEC is the toughest conference. Because in other conferences, you get your Florida States and Clemsons in the ACC, and sometimes your Miamis, and even those are questionable right now. You get your Ohio States and Michigans, and then a Cinderella every now and then, whether that be Washington, Indiana, or whatever. And then you also get your Penn States in the Big Ten. In the 16-team SEC, you generally go about 10 deep with programs hoping to compete for a national title at any time that can generate a ton of revenue. Texas, Alabama, Georgia, LSU, Texas A&M, and Florida, and Oklahoma, per the most recent revenue reportings in 2024, were the top 10 revenue producing schools. That is 7 of the top 10 coming from the SEC. 7 of the top 10 came from the SEC. The only ones that didn't, Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State. But wait, I'm not done. Auburn, 8 of the top 11. 8 of the top 11 came specifically from the SEC, okay? That is a big deal. In terms of total revenue, that's a huge deal. And as you go forward, when you look at the athletic valuations of programs, which is another one. Texas is number 1, projected price $2.38 billion. Georgia number 2, Ohio State number 3, Notre Dame number 4, Michigan number 5, Alabama number 6, Oklahoma number 7, USC number 8, Tennessee number 9, LSU number 10. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 SEC schools, 3 Big Ten schools, and an independent school. And then when you get to 12, you have 8 SEC schools. You get to 9 SEC schools before you get to the 6th Big Ten school, or before you even get to the top ACC school. What I'm saying to you guys is, there's a reason Ohio State's fighting for this. There are a lot more, to use capitalist phrases here, takers in the Big Ten than there are contributors. Whereas the SEC is by and large loaded with contributors. So they all somewhat benefit from each other. Yes, Texas is a contributor on a level much higher than anybody else in the SEC. That's not deniable. But they're the only ones, and Texas could have gone independent and chose to go to the SEC. They made certain demands. The SEC, as long as Greg Sankey is not even worse than I thought he was as a commissioner, is in a position to not really cater to Texas. So with that in mind, this is Ohio State testing some waters. But I really do think it will be a problem with the Big Ten, because Ohio State and Michigan have every right to feel that they contribute so much more than they take in from the Big Ten. See, in the SEC, it doesn't actually work out that way. The SEC goes so deep. Everybody I named, by the way, again, let's just talk about it. Tennessee, Florida, Georgia, Alabama, Auburn, Texas, Texas A&M, Oklahoma, LSU, That's 9. I feel like I'm missing one. Let me just go back real quick and think about this. Tennessee, Florida, Georgia, Alabama, Auburn, LSU, Texas A&M, Texas, Oklahoma. Okay, those nine programs expect to be national championship winning programs. Now the other 7, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Arkansas, Vanderbilt, Kentucky, South Carolina, and Missouri hope to be relevant. But that is less than half of the SEC, and that's about 3/4 of the Big Ten. And those type of schools aren't going to be the revenue producers that they want to be. So because of that, look, I'm telling you guys this right now, the saving grace for the SEC is that the SEC goes way deeper in terms of contributors than takers. Yes, Vanderbilt's a taker. We all know Vanderbilt's a taker. But it's one thing if, all the contributors, Tennessee, Texas, Georgia, Florida, I talked about all those schools, they all pony up just a little bit of money to help out Vanderbilt. Ohio State and Michigan by themselves are ponying up money to help out about 12 other schools in the Big Ten. It's not the same. It's not the same at all. And so because of that, you don't have the same problem with the SEC that you're going to have with the Big Ten. This is the arguments that we always make on why the SEC is the better conference. The SEC is the better conference because you're not, and by the way, this leads to production on the field. I've never denied Ohio State and Michigan could do what Georgia or Alabama or any of those schools do in the SEC. USC in their heyday in the 2000s could have done it, okay? And USC has the infrastructure as a program to still be able to do it. Florida State, Miami, Clemson, sure. I'm not taking anything away from any of those programs. But I picked 2 to 3 from a conference. USC I get in the Big Ten now. But I'm picking 2 to 3 from a conference. Whereas in the SEC, you go 9 deep of schools that could do that at any given time. And that's the real difference. So when you bring all of that up, that is to say that I don't see how in any way, shape, or form the Big Ten gets out of this. And I also don't see how the SEC ever struggles from that perspective. I just don't see a way that the SEC can sit there and struggle from that perspective at all. I think the SEC, again, life is better when you have more high-level contributors than when you don't. That's life in general. Okay, when you have, you can look at communities across the country that are funded by property taxes. When the majority of the people in your community are homeowners, all of a sudden you got a lot more money to do things because you have a lot more people with properties to tax. When the majority of your community is renters, it's hard to pay for services. That's just how things work. When you are a contributor of that level, it's, again, I'm not saying I believe in the taker-giver mentality. I'm saying the givers and the producers are going to want to always take more for themselves. That's how life works. That's how college football is going to work. The SEC is a community of majority producers. Every other conference is a community of majority takers. Once you are a majority taker conference, you will have issues at the top. People like Ohio State don't want to contribute that money for everybody else. And that is the biggest problem, is that the Big Ten is still a majority taker conference. It does not matter how big the TV deal they sign is. It doesn't matter if it's $1 billion. It doesn't matter if it's $2 billion. It doesn't matter if it's $10 billion. Ohio State will have a lot more to do with that than half the Big Ten. And they are going to feel a certain way about that. Nobody in the SEC, nobody contributes more than half the conference. You could take any 8 schools in the SEC. Those 8 schools collectively are going to be more valuable than one school in the SEC. You can't say the same about the Big Ten. You could take 8 schools in the Big Ten, or I guess it's 9. You can take 9 schools in the Big Ten, and if you pick the 9 right schools, Ohio State will be worth more than them collectively and be more valuable. And that's where the big difference comes. And so the issues that face the SEC, that plague the SEC, are not the same type of issues that are going to plague the Big Ten. This could be the saving grace for the SEC, as Greg Sankey has totally and stupidly bungled negotiations in every single way possible. So, look, the SEC is going to be okay on this. They are going to be okay. I think the Big Ten is going to have to address this. This is where when the friction happens, all of a sudden the SEC has an edge that we didn't see before. We wanted to see how that plays out long term. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. Play to win, why settle? Led by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com. We broadcast you live every weekday at 10 a.m. Eastern from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln studio. Ted Russell Ford Lincoln is your home for the finest vehicles in Knoxville, new and used. East Tennessee's largest Ford and Lincoln volume dealer. I want to thank you guys all for tuning in today. Please hit that like and subscribe button. Ring the bell, turn on your notifications. Building something great here at Off the Hook and want you to be a part of it. I will be on tomorrow for a live recap of the game after it ends. Can't wait to talk about that. You guys enjoy the game. Enjoy the great weekend of college football coming up. Have a great rest of your day, and I will see you all tomorrow.